now. I think we're good to go.
Cool.
All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to episode number 26 of Chel Squared. I'm your host, Andrew Chelney, and oh man, do we have a special show for you today. 26th show means this podcast has been around for exactly half a year. Exciting stuff here on Chel Squared. Please make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Chel Squared and on Facebook at Chel Squared for more hot takes, news by featured guests, poll questions, and a whole lot more. Please rate the show on iTunes if you enjoy listening. It means a lot to me. And every time you either like the show on SoundCloud or give it a rating on iTunes, a puppy gets a hug from its owner. I don't make the rules, just making sure you are in the know. If you prefer listening to podcasts on YouTube, search Chel Squared Podcast and the show will be there too. By the way, I just submitted my last final ever, which means I'm officially a graduate of the Newhouse School at Syracuse University with a degree in broadcast and digital journalism. This will be the last time I record the show in the city of Syracuse, at least for the foreseeable future. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but from what I understand, I won't be recording here for at least a little while. These last 3.5 years have been absolutely unforgettable, and I can't wait to start the next chapter of my career. And as always, a ton to get into this week. The St. Louis Blues are a formidable team in NHL 19, but in reality, they're a fragile group that is playing forgettable hockey, besides, of course, the 4-3 win they had against Florida on Tuesday. They're 11-14-4, 10 points out of a wild card spot right now, 13 points out of third in the Central. I mean, is it time for the Blues to sell? Time to fire the coaching staff, the general manager? I mean, how are they going to fix this mess? We'll get into that in a little bit. Also, the Ducks went from being good to being absolutely abysmal to now they're now good again. I mean, they're 8-2 in the last 10 games, suddenly sitting second in the Pacific, behind the also surging Calgary Flames by 3 points. The Ducks should be bad. The Flames can't keep the puck out of their own net, and yet both of them sit atop the Pacific while the Blues stink. You just can't make this stuff up. We'll get into both of these teams as well. Plus, the Flyers are a disaster. They are absolutely a disaster. Train wreck team. I mean, you give up 2 goals against Calgary with about a minute to go in the game. You choke a 5-3 lead, and then you lose in overtime. Here's the thing. The Flyers and the Blues need to have a meeting and figure out what the other should do, because neither of them have any idea what they're doing. Neither of them, just zero clue. None of them do. They're just standing pat right now, and I don't know what's going on, and they don't either. The Sabres have finally won a game after spiraling since the 10-game win streak that was broken a couple weeks ago. I mean, they beat the LA Kings. They didn't, not a very impressive win, but a win is a win. They host the Coyotes tonight, who have lost 3 in a row. Antti Raanta likely out for the season with a lower body injury. When it rains and pours in the desert, we'll get to the poll question and a whole lot more. Joining me this week is blues writer for the Hockey Writer, Stephen Ground. Stephen, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Congratulations on the impending graduation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So before we get into the hockey stuff, I want to ask you, because it's Christmas time, happy holidays to everyone that celebrates Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, everything and anything in between. I need to ask you a very important question. Gingerbread cookies. I talked about this in my radio show up here, and I very much argue that gingerbread cookies are not an elite cookie. What are your thoughts on gingerbread cookies? Are they an elite dessert?
Oh, they're definitely not elite.
Thank you.
I can eat. They're fine, but I wouldn't go out of my way to find a gingerbread cookie.
I mean, here's the thing, right? They're dry. What my co-host was arguing with me on air that the icing makes the cookie.
Well, then it's not the cookie that makes
it. I'm very glad we're on the same page here, because I said the same thing. I said if the icing is better than the cookie, then why eat the cookie? Just eat the icing.
You don't eat pizza for the crust, or most people don't, at least. I don't know. This may not be the most masculine confession to start off your podcast, but I have become addicted to the Great British Baking Show on Netflix.
Okay.
they love gingerbread. So maybe it's an English thing that's carried over to our side of the pond. I'm just guessing. But yeah, for me, definitely not elite. That would be a far stretch as far as I'm concerned.
We watch a couple of the cooking shows on there as well. Chopped. We love Chopped at home. One. We are cooking aficionados.
You should know then. You should be a judge on whether gingerbread is elite or not.
Right. Well, it's not. Here's the thing. I mean, it's dry. You get more of it on yourself than you do in your mouth. I mean, it just falls all over. There's crumbs everywhere. It's not even good. I don't know. Gingerbread cookies, man. They're just not elite. I'm glad we're on the same page here.
I'm worried you would have kicked me right off the podcast if I'd said.
I was thinking about it. Not gonna lie, I didn't say anything, but I was thinking about it.
Well, I'm glad I passed the test.
I'm glad you did as well. So the St. Louis Blues, Steven, I need you to tell me what in the world is going on in St. Louis, because this is a joke. This is such a mess that the Blues are in. Before the season started, I thought they were going to be a formidable team. They were going to make the playoffs. They're going to do damage in the playoffs. And yet it is December 13th. It is 6 o'clock p.m. my time, 5 o'clock your time. And they sit almost dead last in the Western Conference. They are third from dead last. Only the Kings and the Hawks have less points. And even then, the Kings are 2 points below the Blues. And the Hawks are 1 point below the Blues, although the Blues have 3 games and 4 games in hand on the Kings and the Hawks, respectively. However, I mean, this is scary. This is a team that, on paper, like I said in the opening, should be a scary team to play. And not only are they not scary, I mean, they're just falling over. I mean, this is not a team that is deserving of this roster.
Absolutely not. Both the Kings and the Hawks, it should be noted, have shut out the Blues at some point this season. So that's an extra little feather in their cap. Yeah, I mean, I was listening to the 31 Thoughts podcast, Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick, on my long drive home today, and Elliot Friedman described it perfectly. He said the Blues are in WTF mode.
Right.
And I think that's perfect. I mean, I think this front office, led by GM Doug Armstrong, is totally floored by where they find themselves at this point in the season. They were a fringe playoff team. They were in it till the very final game. They missed the playoffs by a point last year. It was the first time in 7 years, the 6 seasons before that, they'd made the playoffs. They, it's tough to say why they missed last year. It had a lot to do with some injuries and Jake Allen falling apart and different things. But, they were really close to being a playoff team. And then they added Ryan O'Reilly. They added Tyler Bozak and David Perron and Patrick Maroon. They really overhauled their forward group. They brought in some young prospects. And to be where they are, if I'm responsible for telling you exactly why it's happened, I'm probably going to disappoint you this show, but I'm happy to discuss some of the things that could possibly be contributing.
Well, the one biggest thing that strikes me here, if you look at the stats, I mean, Ryan O'Reilly, 29 points in 29 games. He leads the team. You can't really put any blame at all on him. But Tarasenko, after he scored 40, 39, and 33 goals in the last 3 seasons. In 29 games this season, he has 9 goals. 11 assists, so 20 points in 29 games is pretty good. But for Tarasenko, who is a elite sniper, he's not scoring goals. Yeah,
and there's frustration within the team about Tarasenko's lack of goal scoring, I think. That pace is still a 25-goal pace, which would be a respectable total if it wasn't Vladimir Tarasenko that we were talking about. Right. His problem has always been consistency. He's always had a tendency to go on these really long scoring droughts where, he'd score a hat trick or he'd score 5 goals in 3 games one part of the season, and then he'd go 2 weeks without a goal at another point in the season. I think he is doing some things this season that he hasn't done before. I think he's playing a better defensive game overall, but he really Blues fans really want to see him shooting the puck. And for whatever reason, he's been unwilling to kind of step right into that Alexander Ovechkin mold. Not that all Russians have to play the same way, but they are very similar players. And just sort of, find his office on the ice and fire pucks and just take shots that come to him. He really looks to create for his teammates, which is an admirable quality in some respects. But when you're expected to be the guy that puts up 40-goal seasons, like you said, it really isn't what the front office or the fans are looking for. They brought in Ryan O'Reilly is probably the third or fourth center now that they brought in, at least with some hope that he would find some magical Backstrom Ovechkin-esque chemistry with him and make them a top scoring unit. It was Paul Stastny before that. It was Jori Lehtera for a season and a half before everybody realized what he really was. I mean, they've done it a lot. And so at some point it just falls on Tarasenko himself to just start firing the puck more, because I think that's really simply what he's not doing.
Well, he has 112 shots on goal through 29 games. His shooting percentage is down. It is the lowest shooting percentage of his career. He's always been double digits. At least his lowest total was 10.7%. In his rookie season in 2013. But so far this season, he's scored 9 goals on 112 shots, which is 8%. So is there maybe not exactly a causation, but is there maybe a correlation between his shots in general? Are they the same shots that he's always taken, or is he hesitant and he's taking low percentage shots? I mean, what is going on with the way that he's shooting the puck?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right. There's some element of lower danger, lower percentage involved there. He's currently 11th in the league, tied for 11th in shots, which is tied with Patrick Laine on the one hand, but also players like Brendan Gallagher and Cam Atkinson on the other hand, who you don't necessarily think of as the top goal scoring threats in the league. I think when I say he needs to fire it more, I do think it's more about the high quality chances. He does have a tendency, when you think he's in the spot where his wrist shot should just beat the goalie, that those tend to be the times where he looks for that extra pass. He tries to do too much, and he tries to make a play where he should just be the one that shoots the puck. His shot, anyone who's seen his shot knows how wicked it is and how fast and precise it can be. So I don't know if it's a confidence thing. He has struggled with that at points in his career where he's just not willing to believe in himself that he can beat the goalie, although he certainly can. Or if it's just he's trying to create for the whole team and trying to score, multiple goals at one time almost, for lack of a better phrase. The one thing I will say about Tarasenko is he puts enormous pressure on himself to perform for this market. It's his home away from home. Obviously he's a Russian-born player. He spends his summers over in Russia, but he loves St. Louis. He wrote a Player Tribune article a few summers ago talking about how much he cared about this city. So it's not that he doesn't care. It's not a lack of effort or a lack of concern with the results. It's just not happening right now. And I think he's kind of a microcosm of the whole team in that respect.
Well, what do you think about the defense then? Because there's been a lot of questions regarding the blue line for the St. Louis Blues, a name that I've seen time and time again from Blues fans really, really dislike, at least right now anyway. Obviously, he's a bit older now on the team, as Jay Bouwmeester. He's 35 years old, no goals, and just 3 assists in the first part of the season here. And it does look like Jay Bouwmeester has slowed down. I mean, right now, according to HockeyReference.com, he's been on the ice for just 12 goals for, but has been on the ice for 26 goals against, which is the biggest difference since the 2012-13 season, when he was negative in Calgary and then got traded to St. Louis, and now he's negative again. I mean, he had 29 goals for, and in 2012-2013 with the Flames, and gave up 40 goals that season. Then got traded to the Blues and then was on the ice for 10 goals for, and was on the ice for 6 goals against. So that was the last time he ended a season by allowing more goals than scoring more goals while on the ice. Now this season, I mean, this is a minus 14 differential here. He's clearly on the ice way more when the opposing team scores than when his own team scores. So is there a solution with Jay Bouwmeester? Is he the problem that some Blues fans and some metrics show that he is, or is there something more to his game that suggests, hey, he's a problem, but it's more of a team thing?
Yeah, I mean, I want to clarify first that I really respect Jay Bouwmeester.
Sure,
I mean,
of course.
Second overall pick. He was an NHL Ironman for a long time. He's been a great player for the Blues. I do think the reality is he had a really bad hip injury last year. He struggled to come back from that. And I just think he's lost a step. And it happens to every professional athlete at some point in his career, unless they just have the self-awareness to bow out right before it happens. One of the things I noticed about Bouwmeester when he was traded here back in 2013, he was so fast. I mean, he was, you knew enough about him as a fan of it in another market to know that he was a good defender, but I don't think most fans, and I wasn't the rabid fan that now that I am then, I don't think most people intimately know the game of the defenders on other teams that aren't, even in their division. And Bouwmeester was wicked fast when he came over to the Blues. And it was almost like he almost looked like a gazelle or something on the ice, and that he'd take these big strides and he'd just close huge gaps in a matter of seconds. And, as he's aged, he's lost that speed, and he never really had the physicality to compensate for it. So I don't think it's that he obviously still thinks the game at a high level.
Right, of course.
And he's doing everything he can, but I just don't think he has the physical ability to do what he used to do. With that said, I do think he's gotten a little better. I think he came off the IR early in the season and looked really awful. I don't notice him as much lately. But on top of that, it's really not his fault that the Blues don't have haven't done a better job, Mike Yeo especially before he was fired, of limiting his minutes. Trying to limit the high danger situations he's in, penalty kill, 6-on-5 situations like that. He's out there a lot when maybe he shouldn't be, and that's obviously not on him. The Blues do have a defensive coach in Mike Van Ryn, who's very young. It's his first real NHL coaching job. This is his first season. A lot of heat has been kind of deflected his way as well, and I think some of that is fair, although obviously he's very young, and so there's a learning curve there as well.
Sure. Well, the thing with the Blues is, I mean, this blue line isn't it should be good, but if you play Jay Bouwmeester top 2 minutes, you're not going to have a good time. I mean, your top 6 is Bouwmeester, Parayko, Vince Dunn, Bortuzzo, Chris Butler, and Jordan Schmaltz. You have some talent there, obviously, in Parayko, and Pietrangelo obviously not playing right now. How would you fix it? What is the solution here to either the blue line or the offensive core or the goaltending? I mean, the goaltending has been okay, not great. The offense should be a lot better, but it's not. The defense it should be better, but it's not. I mean, what is the solution here for the St. Louis Blues?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to keep this short. I think overall, the Blues are a team that have seen remarkably little turnover in their defensive core. I can't think of another team that has had basically the same core. They've had, Vince Dunn arrived last year. He's been a really bright spot for them for the most part. But other than that, they've had the same basic group of Pietrangelo and Bouwmeester on top, Parayko and Edmondson beneath them, and even kind of third pairing or seventh defensemen, guys like Carl Gunnarsson, who's currently also on the IR, and Robert Bortuzzo and Chris Butler. I mean, all of those guys have been here for a really long time. So I think it speaks, as you said, to the fact that this defense shouldn't be this bad. I mean, maybe there's an argument that you should just kind of have an internal refresh every once in a while and get a new face in the group. But overall, they've been much better. Obviously, under Ken Hitchcock, they were great. I think some of it is the scheme that Mike Yeo came into the league with, into the season with. The Athletic did a great article about how he was playing a man-to-man defense that was kind of outdated and really couldn't keep up in today's NHL. Some of it is obviously aging and injuries. Obviously, they don't want to be relying on Chris Butler in a third pairing role, as you kind of chuckled at when you said his name. That isn't ideal, clearly.
Right.
I mean, nobody thinks it is. He's a local guy who's done a great job being kind of their 8th/emergency defenseman, and he's the captain of their AHL team right now just because he's a great leader. You know, he's got the right attitude, but he's obviously not an NHL caliber defenseman, really. And then you touched on the goaltending. There's no more divisive issue in St. Louis than Jake Allen. I think overall there are those who would say that if you gave us Corey Schneider, another goalie that's really struggling, any other goalie in the league, the Blues would be above 500 right now and be in a playoff spot, that it's all Jake Allen's fault. And then there are others that say that Jake Allen is totally at the mercy of his defense and that he's never missed a puck he should have saved and all that. Obviously, the reality lies somewhere in between that. I tend to lean towards the side that he's not probably an NHL caliber everyday starting goalie. His problem is also inconsistency, and lately he's been really good. So the last few weeks haven't been his fault, but to start the season, he was certainly rough, and the team was really rough, and I think it kind of snowballed on them to get them to where they are right now.
The Jake Allen save percentage right now is .899, goals against of 3.11. I mean, even if you look back to last year, Jake Allen's save percentage, he played 59 games, started 56 of them, somehow got 27 wins in a season that his save percentage was .906. Goals against was 2.75. I mean, those are not starting numbers no matter who you are, no matter where you play.
No. And the thing with Allen is streakiness. I mean, it really is. I don't know if you remember, because you're obviously not from the area, but when the Blues played the Wild in the first round of the playoffs 2 years ago, Jake Allen absolutely took the series over. I mean, he was the entire difference between the Blues winning and losing. I think they won in 5 games. But again, I think he had a save percentage of like .970, it seemed, in that season. Or in that series, and absolutely was the difference maker. So he has these stretches where he's got insane production, but then he has these other stretches where he just couldn't stop a beach ball. And this is public knowledge, so I'm not trying to shame him in any way. He did see a sports psychologist over the summer to talk about some of those issues. I don't know if it's helped or not. I don't know what they discuss, obviously, but it seems that whatever it is with Allen, he doesn't have the confidence to consistently perform at a high level. And I think the Blues, more than anything, especially coming into the season, just needed someone who wasn't going to hurt you, somebody who was going to give you a chance to win 95% of the time. And the reality is that Allen just has not been that over the course of his career. Last season he had a shorthanded save percentage of .834. He had a power play save percentage, which I don't even understand, of .850. I mean, that's a bunch of shorthanded goals he's letting in, too. It's not great. It's really not been great. They're tied into him for this season and 2 more at around a 4.35, I want to say, his cap hits at. And until they can unload him, it's going to be a tricky situation in net for the Blues.
Well, this leads me to my poll question for the day. How would you fix the St. Louis Blues? I gave 4 choices. I mean, I would combine a couple of these, but I only had so many characters to work with. The 4 options now, I'm going to tell you the 4 options, and I won't tell you choice got how many votes here because I want your opinion. The 4 choices are trade everyone and tank, fire the coaching staff, stand pat, or become a buyer. Steven, which one would you be?
Well, I certainly wouldn't be a buyer. I don't think they're at all in position to do that. I do think their most immediate concern should be the coaching staff. Craig Berube was brought on, obviously, as an interim, and he's done some things well. Before he was brought on, they hadn't had a division win against a team other than Chicago since February 9th, if you can believe that. And
wow.
Since brought on, they've already had 3 against each of the top teams in the division, Winnipeg, Nashville, and Colorado. That's the bright spot, but obviously the team as a whole hasn't been much better under him than under Yo. So before you really make major changes, I'm sure we'll talk about some of the rumors with Tarasenko and Pietrangelo. I really would like to see you get your next head coach in here so he can sort of evaluate the players and sort of cast his role on the team and see who fits it and who doesn't. I'm not sure that that's the timeline the Blues have in mind because I think Doug Armstrong is really, I don't want to say trigger happy because I think he's really good at trades for the most part, but I think he's itching to make a change and he's really dissatisfied with what's happening and the coaching search might take till the end of the year. But I think that'd be my number one. And then I don't think they're really in tank mode. But they definitely are looking at making some significant trades.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with you there. By the way, Coach Q, still a UFA, still does not have a contract with the team.
Yeah, very interesting. Obviously, would be a reunion for Quenneville, who was the Blues coach before he went to Colorado and then Chicago. I think there's interest there. Maybe mutual interest, but whether it gets done, I'm trying to keep my hopes down, quite frankly.
So the poll got over 60 votes. I put it up right before the start of the episode here because I was doing a whole lot of things and I forgot to put it up a little bit earlier. The 4 choices, trade everyone in tank, got 49% of the vote. Fire the coaching staff got 25%. Stand pat somehow, some way, got 11% of the vote. Now, here's the thing. If you voted for this, why? Why? Why in the why would you want to do nothing with a team that is supposed to be good and is terrible, has been terrible for the first third of the season plus, and you don't want to change anything? You kind of want to just wait and see what happens? I mean, here's the thing, right? You obviously don't want to pull the trigger too early, but something's got to be done. You can't just roll into 12th in the Western Conference this way without doing anything. I don't know. If you voted for Stan Pat, I need you to tweet me, and we'll have a conversation about that because oh boy, I don't want to be mean here, but I feel like you should stick to NHL 19 because this team is bad. Something has to happen, and if you're standing pat, then. I mean, I don't know. That's probably not the best decision, in my opinion. And the 4th choice was become a buyer at 16%. By the way, there's a couple more votes rolled in. Now, trade everyone in tank dropped to 48%. Fire the coaching staff now at 25%. Stand pat at 11%. Become a buyer now at 16%. I mean, here's the thing. Again, like, someone just voted for become a buyer. With this team, with a team that doesn't have a first-round draft pick this year, unless it's a top 10 pick, in which case they could give you next year's first round pick to Buffalo in that Ryan O'Reilly trade. You're becoming a buyer? What?
Yeah.
I wish whenever you answered a poll that you would have to reply. You would have to give your reasoning because I am so intrigued by these people that either want to stand pat or want to buy. I am mesmerized, but they didn't leave a reply. They didn't say why. They just voted, and it not that it bothers me, but it's a question that I would love answered because this is. I mean, you really want to stand pat right now? You really want to buy right now with this team in where they are right now? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't. As you mentioned, that pick is top 10 protected. And when Armstrong put that protection on there, I think we all kind of scoffed at it. I mean, not that it wasn't a wise thing to do, obviously. In hindsight, it was very wise. But, we all were pretty confident this team would come nowhere near the top 10 picks in the draft. And now they're looking like they might be. And I think as far as standing pat goes, to me, the nightmare scenario for this team is finishing between the 10th and 16th pick, finishing outside of the playoffs, but regaining enough of your season to cost yourself that draft pick. And it's more than the draft pick. I think it's really something to do with the fact that this team has shown that it has major flaws. And I don't think Doug Armstrong would be tempted to kind of whitewash his mind of that if they sort of rebounded and played, let's just say 500, 525 hockey the rest of the season. But I'd be worried. I do think the team needs some major changes. I don't think it's really tanking. I mean, as far as this season, maybe, I think it's not really a rebuild long term because, as we talked about at the Open, I think a lot of the core of the team is pretty good players who should be good for a long time now. But yeah, something's got to change for sure.
Well, would you trade Tarasenko? Would you trade Pietrangelo for something, for somebody, for a draft pick, for a prospect? Would you make that move?
It's hard. It's really hard for me to say. Obviously, those are both players that have been with the Blues for a long time, but they're interesting in a couple of different ways right now. We talked about the frustration with Tarasenko. He has a no-trade clause that kicks in over the summer. So Armstrong knows with him that if he really is frustrated with him and does want to move on from him, this is his window to do it before the trade deadline, before the offseason rolls around. With Pietrangelo, I think he's more likely to be traded right now because he has this year and next left on his contract. And, the way the team is going and the way the leadership has gone as the team's captain, I'm not sure that they're going to want to dish out the big bucks to keep him long term, even as valuable as his minutes and his defensive skill are. My overall read on things is that there's some disconnect with the player leadership, which is those two. Alexander Steen's a part of that group. They're the ones that wear the letters. And whether it's, I think the way to start turning this team around is to start shipping parts of that group out. I don't want to see it. There's no way they could win a Vladimir Tarasenko trade very believably. It'd be really hard to win an Alex Pietrangelo trade for that matter, but it may be what they need to do to really get this team to a new start, to get them kind of a fresh look at what the core of this team might be.
Would you trade them now, or would you wait until the deadline?
I don't see any point to waiting if the deal is there. I will stress that I really think a Tarasenko trade is unlikely. You're selling him at low value right now, as we already talked about with his points. He has 5 years left at $7.5 million, which is an outrageously team-friendly deal for a player of his caliber. And Doug Armstrong, who I wouldn't say is on the hot seat internally because the front office gave him an extension last season when it made more sense to do so. He's certainly facing the hot seat in the eyes of the public, and if he went out and traded Vladimir Tarasenko, unless it was just a can't miss, you're talking about getting McDavid or something in the process, which obviously couldn't happen unless it's just...
Well, it's Edmonton. Hold on. It is Edmonton.
It's still there, so
we don't know. Yeah, never say never with Edmonton.
That example. You're right. Unless it's getting an Ovechkin or a Crosby in the process. Unless it's just a no-doubt win for the Blues, which it probably won't be, he's going to really be, they're going to be coming for him with pitchforks and torches if they trade him, even if he has the approval of the front of the ownership group to do it. Pietrangelo, on the other hand, he's hurt right now, so that's going to affect some teams' willingness. But yeah, I mean, if he's going to waive his no trade clause to move out, if somebody's going to give you reasonable value to trade him, I don't see the point in waiting. You're only costing yourself, in the lose for Hughes mentality, you're only costing yourself more potential at getting that top draft pick. So I think it could be sooner rather than later.
The Blues are an absolute disaster. You're totally right. Well, a couple of other teams are a disaster right now. The Philadelphia Flyers are basically in the same boat as the St. Louis Blues. I mean, this is a team that I predicted to be maybe not a contender, but definitely a playoff caliber team. They are sitting third to dead last in the East. They are only ahead. They are tied with the Florida Panthers with 28 points, and they're only ahead of the Devils with 26 points. I mean, this is a team that they absolutely blew the game against the Flames, as I said in the beginning of the show. I mean, you can't have a 2-goal lead with, I think it was like 1 minute and 8 seconds left, and then lose in overtime. That's a joke. You can't do that under any circumstance. And the fact that Hackstall still has a job is honestly, I mean, you can't fire, I said this before, but you can't fire everyone except for the position that will give you the most short-term benefits in the head coaching position. You can't fire the assistants. You can't fire the GM without firing the head coach. You can't do that. It's a joke. The Flyers are a joke. I mean, this is a team that, again, I thought was going to do well. I have JVR on both my fantasy teams. I put in some, I thought this team was going to do well, and yet they're a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I mean, it occurs to me that for a long time, Philadelphia, since childhood, really has been one of my other favorite teams in the league. And I'll tell you, it was as simple as the fact that they wore orange and had Danny Briere. It was not a complicated reasoning when I was a youngster. But so maybe I'm the problem. But that's a team. I was shocked by the news that they fired Ron Hextall. To me, that was just an absolutely wrong decision. I think for the most part, Hextall had done a really good job there. He obviously built what until this year was a competitive team, and he was just kind of waiting. I think, he's waiting on Carter Hart, their goalie prospect, and a couple of their other top prospects. Obviously, where he fell short was acquiring them a goalie in the short term, but I really thought overall he was doing a good job. And then to replace him with Chuck Fletcher, who is the king of mediocrity. I mean, with all due respect, he built a Wild team that contended for a second round exit every single year. I mean, that was their peak, was the second round exit. It just didn't make sense to me. And like you said, how Hackstall is still there with all these other changes. Fletcher is going to replace him eventually. So why are you waiting to pull the trigger on that? I don't understand it. I really don't. I think they're a team kind of like the Blues that have some problems on defense and have some problems in goaltending. And they are falling apart because of it.
The Flyers and the Blues need to have a vacation together and have a conversation about what the other team needs to do, because they don't know what to do with themselves. So maybe if they help each other out, maybe they can both get out of this ridiculous mess that they put themselves in. I mean, the Flyers don't know what they want to do. The Blues don't know what they want to do. They should just get together and figure this out together. Because they don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I've long considered that the Flyers would be a good trading partner for the Blues, and maybe it's time for them to make a mutual shakeup sort of move, where maybe the Flyers look at moving one of their top stars for one of the Blues' top stars and sort of make it happen. Obviously, they did the Shin trade a couple years ago, although that was Hextall who was there at the time. But yeah, they're both disasters right now.
No, it's a total mess. Kind of going on the opposite end of the spectrum here, the Ducks, who were abysmal in the beginning of the year, have somehow managed to claw their way to second in the Pacific Division. They are 17-11-5. They're 8-2 in the last 10 games. They beat Dallas last night after Dallas scored a couple of goals. They were ahead, I think it was 3-1, and then the Ducks won 6-3 in the end. I mean, this is a team that if you look at them on paper, and there's not a whole lot to them besides the obvious Getzlaf and John Gibson, who's been absolutely phenomenal for them. I'm pretty sure they have 17 wins. I'm sure at least most of them are because of John Gibson. I mean, this guy right now is playing absolutely out of his mind. Should be in the Vezina conversation, no doubt about it. I mean, this goaltender is single-handedly saving the season for the Anaheim Ducks right now. It is a shame that he's not being mentioned as a top 3 goaltender right now on December 13, 2018. Right now, if you look at this season only, these last couple months specifically, John Gibson has to be a top 3 goaltender. You can't argue otherwise, because this is the Ducks are second in the Pacific only because of John Gibson. That's it. You take John Gibson out of the equation, you put pretty much anybody else in there. The Ducks are not 17-11-5.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of John Gibson. I have him on a couple of my fantasy teams, thank God. I wrote an article for the Hockey Writers over the summer kind of ranking all the starting goalies, and I put him, I think, top 5. I don't remember the rankings exactly, but I put him higher than I think most would have done over the summer, and I'm glad to say he's vindicating that decision, not that I'm some sort of Nostradamus. You said he should be in the Vezina trophy conversation. I think if this team makes the playoffs, he needs to be a contender for the Hart. He's been that level of difference maker.
Agree.
You know, he's 13-9-4, which doesn't sound great on its own, but he has a .925 save percentage, a .260 goals against average, which speaks more about the team than about him. He's got 6.4 point shares, which is kind of the metric they try to calculate how much a player is responsible, how many points a player is responsible for. And we're a third of the way through the season. I mean, he's playing out of his mind, goals saved above average, almost 15, 65% quality start rate. He's, like you said, the entire difference on this team. I could absolutely gush about John Gibson. I don't know why I'm quite as obsessed with him as I am, but I think as the fan of a team who does need a quality goaltender, it makes you all that much more aware of what a really top-of-the-line goaltender can do for a team. And for the Anaheim Ducks, it's everything.
I mean, listen, you're speaking to the choir here. I mean, I'm a Rangers fan, and I've watched for the majority of my lifetime Henrik Lundqvist literally carrying this team on his back to the playoffs for the majority of the seasons that he's been on the team. I mean, without him, a lot of those first round exit, second round exit teams wouldn't have even made the playoffs without him. Mm-hmm. And John Gibson reminds me a lot of what Lundqvist did in that era. I mean, he's still one of the biggest reasons Rangers are even close to competitive right now. His point share is 4.9. I mean, his numbers aren't spectacular. He's 10-9-3, .916 save percentage, and a pretty high goals against of 2.78. But if you take a look at how the Rangers play, their defense is abysmal. They give up a lot of odd man opportunities, a lot of just passes and pucks through that shouldn't go through. And somehow, some way, Lundqvist is able to have a positive win-loss. This is a team that literally can't win in regulation anymore. A lot of their wins have come in a shootout. This is a team that is struggling to keep leads, struggling to play well defensively. They have 9 regulation and overtime wins in 30 games. 9. They have 14 wins in total. They have 9 regulation and overtime wins. Only 9. Which is it's terrible. It's the lowest in the Eastern Conference. It's the lowest in the NHL, actually. Even LA, even Chicago have 10 regulation plus overtime wins. The Rangers are dead last in the NHL with 9 regulation plus overtime wins, and somehow, some way, for Lundqvist to be positive in the win-loss category. I mean, it speaks a lot to how he plays. I mean, you have Lundqvist, you have Luongo, who is also turning back time and playing well. I mean, at least as well as he can play. His team is the Panthers are also just not good defensively, so his numbers take a hit as well. I mean, you have to take into consideration the teams that are in front of him. And John Gibson is playing a lot like Henrik Lundqvist did 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the real difference-making goalkeepers in the league. You can count them on one hand. Pekka Rinne when he's at his best.
In the regular season, not in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, that's true. Very, very true, yes. But, Marc-Andre Fleury at his best. John Gibson has now entered that category with obviously Lundqvist there as well. And it's really, I mean, what's the old adage? They say, the game is 50% goaltending. Unless it's bad goaltending, then it's 80% or something along those lines. And with good goaltending, it can be 80% as well. The Rangers very publicly announced their rebuild last season, and I think they're doing better than maybe they should be, as an outside observer. And it's pretty much all because of Lundqvist.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the Flames are a totally different team altogether, though, if you look at it, because their offense is great, their defense is okay, their goaltending is abysmal, and yet they're top of the Pacific right now. They scored 113 goals, which is the highest in the Western Conference. Colorado, I mean, right there with 112. I mean, this is a team that loves to score goals. Only the Lightning have scored more goals. I mean, they scored 130. I mean, this team is lighting it up. But the Flames are scoring a lot of goals, but they're also giving up a lot of goals. They've given up 90 so far, which isn't a lot per se. But a lot of the goals that they give up just, I mean, I've watched some Flames games, and the way Mike Smith plays the game just bothers me. I mean, I watched some of the game last night against the Flyers, and it was Mike Smith. That I think it was either the 4th or the 5th Flyers goal. The pass from the blue line, I can't even qualify it as a shot because it shouldn't even been a shot. This puck was shot from the blue line. It was on the ice the whole time. It went like 10 miles an hour. Somehow made it through Mike Smith by his right pad, right into the corner of the net. Didn't leave the ice the whole time, just kind of floated there. And it somehow went in, and Mike Smith was spun around by himself, and he looked around like this was a cannon of a shot. I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you can't be a goaltender in the NHL at this point of your career and then do stuff like that. What are you doing, Mike Smith?
Yeah, I co-host a mostly blues podcast with a friend, and one of our running jokes is that Mike Smith, maybe it's just Darren Pang, who's our local color commentator and a national analyst, who says this as a former goaltender. But I just feel like I always hear about Mike Smith that he's such a great puck handler, and I hear that and I think, yeah, but that's not a goalie's job.
Yeah.
If he's really great with the puck on his stick, then make him a forward. But his job isn't to go out and play the puck behind the trapezoid and make nice escape passes. It's a great plus, but if the fundamentals aren't there, which they clearly aren't, I don't know why he keeps getting opportunities. The Flames have been absolutely saved by the play of David Rittich, who is a nobody as far as I know. I mean, I'm not intimately familiar with their prospect tree, but I don't think he's their top prospect. He's 26 years old, so I hope he isn't in terms of goal. I know they have a better goaltending prospect, though his name escapes me. But yeah, he's 9-3-0-1 with a 231 goals against and a 921 save percentage. So I think the era of Mike Smith for the rest of this year should hopefully be coming to an end. They need to just kind of cut their losses and admit that Riddish is the guy right now.
No, you're totally right. This team, oh man, this team is good, and yet Mike Smith makes them not good.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at the top of the roster, they have 5 players with 30 or more points. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Mark Giordano has to be sneaking into the Norris Trophy discussion with 32 points and a plus 18. And he's been a great defender for a long time, but he's never quite risen to that level. They've got a lot going for him, but yeah, the goaltending is, I mean, especially from Smith, is just, oof. I would not even trade Jake Allen for Mike Smith, and that's saying a lot.
No, and why would you? I mean, Jake Allen is, in my opinion, better than Mike Smith at least at this point. At the very least, at this point, you would not gain anything by trading Jake Allen for Mike Smith at this point in his career.
Absolutely, and I don't think Smith's contract is much better than Allen's either.
No, and even if it was, let's say it was, why you still won't make that trade. Because it wouldn't benefit you. He's an older goaltender. Jake Allen still is pretty young. I think he's 28 years old. I mean, Mike Smith is, as you said, a great puck handler. Great, and then what?
I mean, I think the only argument, and there was a rumor circulating for a while that the Blues were looking at Jimmy Howard, who is obviously better than Smith, but not nearly a great goaltender. I think the only advantage you could say is if you can get out from under Allen and get one of these guys. Smith is also a UFA after this year, and so is Craig Anderson in Ottawa. Then, you can at least reset net for the Blues. But yeah, I wouldn't take Smith in that deal even to reset at this point.
Mike Smith is somehow 11-7-1 this season, 888 save percentage, and a goals against of 299. Here's the thing. If you are on a team that has players that have scored 42 points in 32 games like Johnny Gaudreau, it's 42, 38, 37, 34, 32. That's Gaudreau, Monahan, Tkachuk, Lindholm, and Mark Giordano, right? All of those 5 guys are all over a point a game. You lead the Pacific Division. And yet your save percentage is 888? Are you kidding me? I mean, David Riddich's save percentage is 921. You can't. Mike Smith doesn't matter what his contract is, you can't trade for him. And you can't sign or trade Craig Anderson either. I mean, I dislike Craig Anderson's play probably more than any goaltender in the NHL. In the NHL. I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy, and I have nothing against him personally. It's just the way he plays his position really bothers me. The way he doesn't really react secondarily, or I said this before on the show, but one of the biggest things that have stuck in my mind in relation to Craig Anderson is I remember this a few years ago when the Rangers were playing the Senators, and there was a cross crease pass, and Craig Anderson did not move. He did not move for this pass. He watched the puck, and all he did was he stretched his glove hand out. That's all he did. He didn't move side to side. He didn't dive for it. He just remained in the same position and waited for the shot to come in. I've never seen that in a goaltender in any level. In any level, you can't do that. And I've watched him, and I watched Sens games since, obviously, and he does that a lot. He doesn't dive for it. He doesn't go the extra step, and it really bothers me as someone that has watched Henrik Lundqvist for a chunk of my lifetime to see someone like Craig Anderson just not go that extra step to either try to get the save or do anything in the sort. He just kind of stays in the same position and hopes that the puck hits him again. If there's a rebound, it bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously up there in years, so maybe he gets a little credit there. But yeah,
Luongo's 39, and he's. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like if your age is impeding you from playing the position, probably shouldn't at least be the starter anymore. You can't have it both ways. You can't be Chris Chelios or Jaromir Jagr. Chelios I think was like 48 when he was playing with the Wolves in the AHL, still with the Atlanta Thrashers back in the day. I mean, and Jagr, right? He's 45 or 46 at this point. The Flames gave him a shot, but even the Flames were like, I mean, this is over. He can't play. So I feel like the Senators have to do the same thing. It's like, listen, if your age is impeding your ability to play the position, let's reevaluate your position.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. The Senators seem to be a dumpster fire of a whole other variety.
Very
right?
true.
Everything going on in that organization. But yeah, I mean, obviously I would say this is Anderson's last year with the Senators. Where they go from here is an entirely different question that I thankfully do not have to answer for them.
That is very true. And one little quick thing about the Sabres and the Coyotes here. The Sabres won 10 in a row, and they spiraled out of control. Last couple of weeks, they just couldn't win a game. And now they finally beat the LA Kings here. Also, the LA Kings and the Hawks both fired their coaches, and yet nothing has changed. Zero has been fixed. Nothing has been fixed. If anything, I mean, they've been as bad as they were previously. These are teams that, I mean, again, I think in both situations they fired the wrong people. I feel like they never should have fired Darryl Sutter, the Kings. Never should have fired him. Quick trigger finger on him. And the Hawks should have never fired Coach Q. They should have fired Sam Bowman instead. The Hawks are second dead last with 25 points in the Western Conference, 10-18-5. I think I heard this ridiculous stat somewhere that prior to this game against the Penguins last night, they won like 3 of the past 22 or something ridiculous like that. And they're 2-8-0 in the past 10 games. The Kings are 4-5-1 in the last 10 games. Are 11-19-2, 24 points in the Western Conference, dead last. And they lost to Buffalo on Tuesday. They're playing the Jackets tonight. I mean, these are two teams that realistically they should have. I mean, the Chicago Blackhawks should have never fired Coach Q, but at least the Kings should have been marginally better. But you hired Desjardins, who's not a great coach, in my opinion anyway, and you don't get improvement. Well, I wonder why. If you don't hire a good coach, then good things won't happen. Wow, that's a surprise. But you look at around the league, right? And Edmonton fired McClellan and they hired Hitchcock, who so far has given the Oilers a short-term boost. They are 7-2-1 the last 10 games. They've won 4 in a row. They beat Colorado 6-4 on Tuesday. They play in Winnipeg tonight. 17-12-2. This was a team that was out of it a couple weeks ago with McClellan. Out of it. They couldn't score a goal to save their lives. And now this is the same team pretty much. I guess Ryan Spooner has changed everything, but this is a team that has now scored 6 goals against Varlamov and the almighty Colorado Avalanche. This is a team that, again, like, they went from being just an afterthought this season to now being in the wild card spot. They're one behind Vegas for the first wild card spot. They're right behind, they're right in the thick of things in the Pacific. They're one behind the Sharks for third in the Pacific Division. This is a team that turned it around. Although, of course, they have McDavid and Draisaitl and all these guys that are better than what LA and Chicago does, but LA has Kopitar. LA has some talent. They have Doughty. Chicago still has Kane and Taves and Crawford. They should still be. I mean, they probably can't be playoff teams with Keith and Seabrook still in that awful blue line mix. But I mean, they should at least be better than what they are now. But you also have to hire good coaches if you're going to replace the ones that you had. Chicago did not, and LA did not.
Yeah, well, let me express to you first my utter shock that replacing the future Hall of Famer Joel Quenneville, who's second all-time in NHL coaching wins, with 33-year-old Jeremy Colleton did not work out to Blackhawks' benefits. I'm absolutely floored by that reality, and I don't think it's really a reflection on Colleton himself, because
no, it's not
expected to turn that team around after letting a guy like Quenneville go. Yeah, as you said, Taves and Kane are still there. They've still got a couple of really interesting young players, Henry Jokiharju and Alex DeBrincat. They made the Schmaltz trade, which I'm still not sure I really am in love with, but a lot of people seem to be happy about. I'm just not convinced at this point that Stan Bowman is a great general manager, I have to say. He came there and really he inherited the core of that team. I mean, I know people say, well, he's won 3 cups. How could he be bad? But he got there and Taves was already there. Kane was already there, as were Seabrook, Keith, and I believe Crawford were all already there. That is the entire core of the team that won those cups. He's made a lot of questionable trades to dump salary that he brought on at some point, not the least of which was the Panarin for Saad trade. That was
boy.
Total overreaction. Yeah, to
What an abysmal trade that was.
It was one of the worst of all time, genuinely.
Yeah.
It will only, if it's forgotten for that, it's only because Panarin won't probably stay in Columbus. But yeah, it was so bad.
That's because he's going to be a New York Ranger.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed, anyway.
But yeah, Chicago, and let me assure you, it brings me no pleasure to say this. I mean, it does. It absolutely does. The Blackhawks are falling apart. Obviously, any hope that they have of being a contender again with this group largely intact is just gone. They have, Kane is obviously still a good enough player that even with that contract, they could trade him, but they probably won't. Taves might be a guy who's more valuable to them than he is to another team. But then,
especially with that contract of his.
Yeah, exactly. But as you mentioned with Keith and Seabrook, those are aging players on bad contracts, and they are just not going to have a defense again until those 2 guys are gone. I know you touched on another bunch of teams in that, and I've apologized that I settled for picking on the Blackhawks. But
no, you're fine.
It's a favorite pastime of mine. So,
I mean, hey, when your rival beats you in the playoffs and then wins 3 cups in 6 years, then it's tough to not be happy, especially when that team is not doing well. Now.
They have the upper hand for sure. And I think what happened is the Blackhawks realized that the only way they could beat the Blues again this season was by outgunning them for Jack Hughes in the draft lottery. So now they're going to do that as well.
Oh, man. Steven, this has been an absolute pleasure. Tell me where to follow you. Tell me where people can read your stuff and plug your social media.
Absolutely. I love plugging myself. I am on the Hockey Writers team. That's just thehockeywriters.com. Pretty much anything you see written about the Blues there, I think it's going to be by me. Obviously, my name will be at the top. But you can find me on Twitter at Stephen Ground, STEPHEN Ground, like the floor. And then I also do a lot of tweeting through my podcast, which is at 2 Guys No Cup, that I co-host with a dear friend of mine. We're crazy, silly Blues fans who are trying to cope with this season together and not doing a very good job of it.
Well, Steven, I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time to talk to me about the not so good Blues and some other teams around the league. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'll talk to you again real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
You got it. And this was episode number 26 of Chel Squared. I'm your host, Andrew Chelney. For the last time from Syracuse University, soon to be from back home, I'm Andrew Chelney, and I'll talk to you again next week.